Mute.
It shows we're going live.
I didn't mute YouTube. Okay, Joy, if you want to start the meeting, I think we can.
Do we have enough members here? We're one, two, oh, I guess we're 5, right? So we've got a quorum. Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Larson, is your video, are you going to have video or are we just going to be hearing you this evening?
I will see what I can do here to make it.
Okay, that's
work.
fine. Okay, so calling to order the Marquette City Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. We can start with roll call. Commissioner Primo? Commissioner Primo, can you hear me? Here, okay. Commissioner Middlefelt?
Here.
Commissioner Dunn?
Here.
And Commissioner Larson?
Here.
And Commissioner Cardillo, that's myself, I am here. We have our agenda. Does anybody want to add anything to agenda, or does somebody want to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
We get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Middlefelt with Commissioner Dunn for the second. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting? Are there any comments or changes you'd like put into the record? Anybody? Seeing as how there's none, we can approve the minutes by consensus. At this time, anybody who has a conflict of interest, please let us know that now. And we don't have any of that. We do not have any public hearings today. So at this point, if we have any citizens wishing to address the commission on agenda items, they can do that now.
Andrea, how do you want to do this?
So it looks like there's 3 in the waiting room and 2 would be for my case, which would be next. So there must be the one person would be for the public comment period.
Admitted Andrew, and is it Scott?
Scott and Andrew are for the case.
Okay. Oh. Sorry, I admitted them, but I forgot we're on citizens.
It's all right. Hold on. All right. And
Scott and Andrew, we admitted you to the meeting, but
I got him out.
Okay.
So I'll admit one of the public that look,
Okay.
I don't think's for the case.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Schimpf, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We've also got Ian Olmsted here.
Hi, Joy.
Both
Hi.
representing
Thanks
Peninsula.
for your time.
Okay, and so we're having our address the city commission, so you have 3 minutes, so please share with us.
Okay. Hey, thanks for everyone volunteering your time on this. So basically, we just wanted to come and talk about the solar zoning changes. I feel like mainly that the zoning that you guys are proposing is unlike any other zoning in the state of Michigan, maybe the country. Like, I think it needs to be revisited completely from the ground up, especially for rooftop mounted solar systems. Basically, the crux of the whole thing is if the city allowed a building to be built with a roof on it in town, there should be the allowance for solar, if it's flush mounted and within the boundaries of the roof, to be installed upon that roof wherever it is. If the city originally allowed this roof to be built, let's allow solar to be on it. Anything else is just extremely not progressive in our eyes. And you can, instead of writing this code from the ground up, why don't we reference other jurisdictions, Grand Traverse, any place in Leelanau County, Emmett County, other states, other jurisdictions within those states, Ann Arbor, Detroit, you name it. Why are we reinventing the wheel here? It just comes into play like, I've heard you, I talked to Mike, and he said, you may come into some exemptions for integrated photovoltaics like laminates and shingles. Well, why those? If we install those on a roof, and one of the concerns here is snow shed. I know it's been brought up. Those shed snow easier than a traditional panel. So what's the point? So I know one of your arguments is this is a structural component. We don't want to add structural components to a non-conforming structure. We don't want to add structure to that non-conforming structure. Well, I think that's the problem. We're viewing these as structural components and not just a roof layering. If you're going to allow, a metal roof on a building without a zoning permit, I really think you should allow panelization of a roof because it's only 3 inches off the roof face, Also, if you add, let's use this as an example. If you add a metal roof to a building and it's shedding snow, which it will, it would be your due diligence to add snow retention systems, snow cleats to that roof. And are snow retention systems structural? Yes, we install them all the time. They are indeed structural. So in those areas where you're installing, like we had this case before, which I guess is still a problem, you're going to be adding a structural component to retain snow on a non-conforming structure. So you're back at the board again. I talked to a lot of people on the city commission. I think they all agree for the most part that this zoning policy is bad. It just needs to be revisited, rewritten. Let's take some time to do that and use other jurisdictions as an example.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olmsted. So we're going to talk about that when we get through to the next point, but I do want to point out, just based on a conversation earlier with Dave, that regarding the specific case you guys are talking about, this amendment will basically validate the panels you've installed. From what I've been told from Dave, your panels are 3.5 feet from the property line, and this will allow you to go to 2.5 feet. So this will not affect or cause you to have.
I apologize.
We'll need the permit though.
Joy, it's just it's a high level of concern because they got a letter in the mail saying that they're non-compliant on the 20th.
They're not compliant apparently because there's a permit that needs to be filed, but that's
okay.
They're not
right.
non-compliant because, well, they won't be because of this amendment that we're putting forward. They will be compliant.
Okay, so we're like panicked over here, obviously, because we don't want anyone suing us, and we don't like. I also still don't like the zoning the way it's written, right?
I understand that,
but it's not the end of the world.
I've heard your comments, and we will take that into consideration.
Okay, well, I just want to say thanks for everybody for taking the time. Joy, everybody,
Thank you.
volunteering time in this and listening to us on the matter. We've just installed like 300 systems. We're licensed electricians. We're licensed builders. We've been doing this a long time. We just want to see simple zoning policy go forward. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, really, this is a lot to do with that one project. So
All right, thank you.
thank you, guys.
Okay, do we have anybody else? Okay,
AP Harrow?
Yeah, I don't recognize that here, if they're part of the case. I guess I'll admit them and we'll find out.
I just did, yeah. Well, this is an opportunity for citizens to address the commission on non-agenda items.
hi, Mr. Harrow. Oh, he's connected. Mr. Harrow, AP Harrow?
Yep.
Hi, are you wishing to address the commission on agenda items?
No, I'm here for the UP State Bank.
Okay, then we're gonna send you out and we'll give you an opportunity to come back in when that case is before us.
Sounds good.
Actually, that's the next thing, so.
Oh,
we-
all right, we'll just leave you in then. Okay. All right, so there's nobody else, right, Andrea?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we have no old business, so we're moving on to new business. Item A is 26 SPR-10-20 site plan review for 1016 West Washington.
Okay. The proposed site plan is for the construction of a one-story office building with drive-through, parking lot, grading, and site improvements to be located at 1016 West Washington Street. The Planning Commission received the agenda packet, which included the staff report and analysis as seen on the screen, and the applicant's application and memos and attachments for lighting specs. And then staff comments. And then the applicant's responses to those comments. And the area map, the parcels outlined in blue. The block map, again, the parcels outlined in blue. Existing photos of the site. And the site plan. Did you guys have any questions for staff regarding any of the materials?
No. Oh, Commissioner Dunn?
I'm kind of trying to get a little background, I guess for staff or anybody on the commission. Just wondering why the sidewalks, kind of right at Outlanders has that little jog and no longer has a planting strip. And it kind of comes out and it's right along the street, right along the curb at that point from Outlanders to the west. I'm wondering why the difference and why the planting strip went away there. I'm wondering if it was a historical thing or it just ended up that way.
That I don't know. It's something historically we engineering or to see if they would know why the change. It could be utilities, it could be something like that.
And in this, so in the general commercial, we're not requiring any kind of planting strip along Washington there.
There's landscaping. They have frontage landscaping.
Right, but I mean a planting strip sort of buffer between the curb and the sidewalk. Okay.
No.
No.
What they're what is being required is with their landscaping that they're showing with the frontage and everything. You're asking if there's room for street trees?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be trees, but any kind of vegetation, whether it's grass or what have you,
If it's in the right of way, they're only allowed to put street trees in, but I don't believe what they're showing is what they talked with the arborist, or the arborist would talk with them with whatever room that they have on there. So if our comments aren't saying that they need to provide more, then they're providing what they need to provide.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else have questions for Andrea or Dave before we hear from the applicants? Okay, so let's go ahead and we can hear from our applicants at this time. Who would like to speak? It looks like we have Mr. Beaudry and Mr. Mansfield, and is it Harrow?
Hero, yeah.
Hero.
Mr. Mansfield will be representing us here today.
Okay, Mr. Mansfield, whenever you're ready.
All right. Yeah, so as stated, we're looking to, we submitted the site plan for 1016 West Washington Street. It's the existing Burger King property, or the old Burger King property. It's about a 1.3 acre site that's currently zoned general commercial. As stated, we're looking to construct a 1-story building, approximately 6,300 square feet. For a bank building with an associated drive-through, parking areas, and other related site improvements, including utility connections, relocation of a power line that crosses the property that feeds the Outlanders restaurant, landscaping, site signage, which includes a pole-mounted sign with a changeable message sign. So that's the general basics of the project. We're proposing to construct 32 parking spaces, which is above the maximum allowed by the code. So right now we're looking at about 10 to 15 employees we're anticipating to work at this site. And then we also anticipate approximately 10 customers at kind of like a max on the site at one time. So when you look at that, we're looking at, you're looking at a max of about 30 spaces. Currently, with the way the zoning is written, we're allowed anywhere between 20 max to 12 minimum, depending on the reduction calculations or excess calculations. 16 would be without modifications. So as part of our site plan submittal, we submitted a traffic flow and parking counts memo, as that is not an item that is allowed via a variance. It's got to go before the Planning Commission. Are there any questions or?
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions for Mr. Mansfield?
No, I think it's, I think this is Michael Larson. I think it looks pretty straightforward to me. I do have a question for staff after we get out of this portion.
Okay.
Or,
Commissioner Middlefeld?
yeah, just a question. Looking at the topo area there, I was a little concerned about some of the slope, it looks like, in the northeast corner, but I think they addressed that in the comments, the response to staff about adding some additional stormwater swales and things. So yeah, I thought I was very okay with the application. I think it looks like it'll add some new business to that area in a good way. So
Commissioner Dunn?
So I'm wondering about sidewalks still, and just wondering how the applicant would feel about having the sidewalk set back off of the road a couple of feet, just giving a little bit of a buffer, if that was something that would interest them at all, just because there's that really nice water feature and the nice landscaping in there, and it would be kind of cool if the sidewalk sort of went right through there. And I think anytime it's just from a safety perspective, it's nice to get the sidewalk a little bit further away from the street. But I wonder if that was considered at all, or if it's something that you would consider, just as obviously there's no requirement for it, but I'm just putting it out there to see if it's something that they'd be interested in.
I guess we did not consider it during the design phase, so that sidewalk is all on the city right away. So we were only proposing to remove and replace those segments required to tie in our utilities. I don't, other than the ADA ramp on the west side at Rubline. So if we were to kick the sidewalk back closer to the existing right-of-way line to create that buffer, we'd have to, kind of dive back in at that existing ADA ramp at Rubline to provide access across the street. I don't know if that ramp currently meets the standard. So I don't know if that would kick us into replacing that ramp and or how that would affect the ramp across the street if you can just replace one.
Yeah, Commissioner Dunn, this really isn't an option for them to decide how the sidewalk and street layout is going to be designed. That's, if they were interested in that and they wanted to talk to our engineering and public works departments about that's one thing, but that's a city, that's public property. That's the city's decision on how
Okay. I guess I misunderstood when I was looking at the site plan because I couldn't tell where the right of way stopped, and so, all right, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this looked pretty straightforward to me. I thought your justification about increasing the parking seemed logical based on just the amount of workers that you're having and the fact that it's there's going to be a lot of offices in there as well. So as much as, we're definitely trying to minimize parking. I think, you make a good case for why you need the parking that you're requesting. So, sorry, let me just go. We have no more questions. Do we have any other further questions for the applicants? And Andrea, is there any correspondence relating to this?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody that wants to do public testimony based on this? I'm assuming everybody in here is part of the applicant. So there's nobody that needs to make public testimony?
Correct. There's no one in the waiting room for this case.
Okay. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of big issues for us. So if somebody wants to make a motion or if somebody would like to suspend for discussion, let's go ahead and do that. Commissioner Larson.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for discussion.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of suspending the rules for discussion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Commissioner Larson?
My question is just, I think it's relatively straightforward, but it's just addressing the one piece within the correspondence back and forth in response to signage and the speed limit that's posted there. They did provide some information back saying that they are within, it's posted 35 on both sides of the property. If we are to meet staff comments, that one would not necessarily be appropriate in there as far as changing the signage to ask him to resubmit for signage sizing based on speed limit. And I guess that question is to Dave and Andrea.
No, what they provided us, it wasn't showing up in the GIS. It was only showing at 25 miles per hour. So yeah, what they provided us shows that it is 35 miles per hour. So the proposed signage does meet the code.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's perfectly fine and dandy before we push anything through.
Sure. Sorry that I didn't make that clear with the response.
Thanks, Andrea. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you, Commissioner Larson, for clarifying that. Do we have anybody that wants to speak further on this?
I got a question for Andrea.
Commissioner Primo?
Yeah, looking at all the plantings and stuff there, and apparently we are not taking into consideration the clear vision triangles, correct?
That is incorrect. We do take that into consideration. We only make comments on clear vision triangle if something is showing that doesn't meet the triangle.
They're not showing on the plan though.
No, we can measure it out ourselves.
Okay. The only question I have.
I guess, or if there's no other comments, I can go ahead and make the motion. Are
Sure.
we ready?
Yep.
After review of the site plan and supplemental documentation dated 9/21/20 and the staff report analysis for 26-SPR-10-20, the Planning Commission finds substantial compliance with the City of Marquette's Land Development Code and hereby approves the site plan as presented with the following condition of approval that an amended plan is submitted to meet staff comments and staff responses.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Middlefelt made the motion with a second by Commissioner Larson. So I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Primo,
Yes.
Commissioner Middlefelt,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Larson,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So the motion carries. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay. Okay, moving on to item B, 2021 Planning Commission meeting dates. Let's see. Andrea, do you want to?
Sure. Sorry, let me get into that and I can put it up here. So these are the proposed meeting dates for the 2021 year. And, if you guys see any issues with that, now would be the time that if we need to move them, if you think it's too close to a holiday or whatnot. We did move the August and the November, the first ones of the month for elections. But the Planning Commission should review the dates as shown up here and render a decision whether to approve with changes or approve it as presented.
Okay. Sorry, I lost everybody here. Let me get.
I can stop sharing the screen. I'm just...
Okay. Great, thank you. Sorry, everybody. I'm on my laptop this evening. I usually have two screens and I can spread it all out. Okay, does anybody have any changes they'd like to suggest for this? Do we need to make a motion on this and vote, or is this can this be a
Correct.
consensus thing?
It needs a motion.
We
Yep.
have to have a motion. Okay. So take a look, everybody. Are there any adjustments? Anybody can? Commissioner Middlefelt?
Just a question. It does say they're scheduled for commission chambers and city hall. I assume we'll be virtual for a while. Do we need
Yeah,
that?
I had that in there just in case. I don't know. At the time, the governor hadn't signed the new bill, the Senate bill, indicating that we can do virtual meetings by the time I had this done to send out. So I will be changing that for the clerk's postings.
Okay. So we need somebody to make a motion to approve these dates.
I would like to make a motion to approve the dates for Planning Commission meeting dates for 2021 as presented.
Second.
Okay. I think we can do this as just, I'll do a roll call. Okay, Commissioner Middlefelt,
Yep.
Commissioner Primo,
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
and Commissioner Larson,
Yes.
And Commissioner Cardillo, I vote yes. So that passes. Moving on, we have many citizens wishing to address the commission on non-agenda items.
I don't see anyone in the waiting room.
Okay. Then we have our bi-weekly report. Did anybody have any comments on that? I get over to it. Oops, passed it. Nothing kind of stuck out to me. So, Dave, if you have no comments on that, we can move on. Yeah, okay. So then we can move on to our work session for land development code amendments. Yep, we're just gonna give Dave a minute.
Okay, so I am, can you see the document here?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your pleasure, Ms. Chair, to go to the items that we were hung up on still? Or
Yeah, if everybody's okay with that, I mean, it feels like there's just a small handful of items that we might want to revisit, unless, you know, and I think you could probably take us through those, Dave, and if anybody has anything additional that they want to bring up, they can do that.
just say for the benefit of whoever was not present at our work session last night, and I know Wayne was not, and Sarah was not there. Were you, Sarah?
I was there.
Okay, sorry. The commission was very agreeable with just about everything, including the outdoor food and beverage service. They were definitely supportive of the increasing the building height as well. So that's the one thing that I guess one of three, I'd say there's three things that need some follow-up. This is one of them. The ADU, the definition that we were talking about, changing the definition of for the allowable for the occupancy of ADUs, and then the home office and home occupation stuff. I think we probably should revisit, but this item, our staff would be comfortable with just going ahead with the 74 feet at this point, and then discussing maybe other options to enhance that as time goes on over the next year. There's certainly not going to be a rush on people wanting to build 74-foot buildings downtown, but there could be one that was built down there. You know, we know there has been desire to build on a lot down there. We don't know if that's still, I don't know if that's still the case or not, but even if that particular lot was built on, the shadows from that building would be falling on 3rd Street for the most part, being where it is on the corner of 3rd and Main. But that's our own kind of feeling about it right now, thinking about it.
Okay, Commissioner Dunn.
So I got the impression that the commission was very much in favor of this, but it also sounded like they were in favor of some sort of density bonus for affordable housing, for lack of a better term, affordable, accessible, whatever you want to call it, whichever term. But it sounded like it was more than just one commissioner that kind of liked the density bonus idea. So I don't know that they have to be together, but I'm just wondering, would it make sense to do that? Like, what are some other density bonuses? Like, I mean, can you just do a different sort of, I guess I'm looking for a different carrot, looking for a different incentive for people to do it, so that we can say, yep, we're good with the building height, but I don't want to miss out on an opportunity to have a bonus there. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm just looking for other things that have worked for a bonus for, residential space.
Mhm. Commissioner Middlefeld?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Dunn said and what I think Michael Larson brought up in the meeting was, I think a lot of us like the idea of density, but maybe this is an opportunity to, kill two birds with one stone kind of a thing. But I don't know. I haven't had time to research what other communities have done with the density bonus policy, but I think that I heard several of the city commissioners seem to like that. I mean, they all had nuanced opinions, but I got a sense that a significant number of them liked that idea. So it seems like before we just kind of rubber stamp the 74 feet, it's an opportunity to build something in there that provides incentives for, affordable housing. So maybe we need to think about this a little bit more. I don't know if we're going to be able to figure what that density bonus policy could look like tonight, but I do think this would be an opportunity to start thinking about what that could look like.
Commissioner Larson?
I would agree with that. I think when Dave, when I said take things slowly, I mean more. I know you said that you've had it for decades at 60 feet, and that's perfectly fine. But mostly, if there are other opportunities for us to look at some kind of progressive policy and so on and so forth, I think the time would be before you increase the height, or we recommend a height increase. And then maybe it's not 74 feet, maybe it's 80 feet, that it goes up to, downtown. I don't know that that's necessarily, where it wants to go, where the height wants to go. But, if you can tie things that the city desires and, maybe bring this to the ad hoc housing committee, as well, saying, hey, we're thinking about these things. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm against going to 74 feet or higher, but I think this would be the opportunity. It seems like it'd be a better conversation to have now than to hire it and then put additional bonuses or additional restrictions on that 74 feet. So I'd be in favor of delaying this in favor of working with potentially the ad hoc housing committee, or potentially doing some sort of charrette of sorts with building heights and community input.
Okay. I mean, I've made clear that I'm definitely in favor of the 74 feet. I mean, I was very heartened, to hear the phrase density bonus spoken about. I think, that's something that the city commission has, there hasn't been a lot of appetite for that previously, and now it definitely feels like things are shifting, and I would love to see that sort of an approach taken. I do think, and you guys have all sort of said this, it's going to be a bit complex. I think there's a lot that has to be taken into consideration. I think it would involve, intense conversations with the DDA, and potentially, these kinds of regulations get more complex. And, my gut would be that we would want to talk to a consultant who's written, bits of code like this before. And I don't know if there's means to be able to do that. But with that said, I still would feel comfortable moving it to 74 feet, just because I think, it would be a good thing for the community, and then pursuing that as an addendum to this. But Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, again, I mean, I think it may be fine moving to 74, but I really think the conversation, at least have that conversation, beforehand, to see if there's actually, real appetite, for it. I mean, we could, I think this could be moved on to, we could revisit this in the near future, for height. But I do think this provides a little bit of an incentive to have that discussion for changing into the slightly more progressive way of thinking.
So, Dave, what would be involved in? I mean, do you agree, Dave? We would have to probably involve the DDA. I mean, just in terms of writing this type of a code into effect, would we need a consultant? Is it something we could do on our own?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what kind of density bonuses are going to work in Marquette. There's not enough space on lots to build. I mean, you're not going to get affordable housing in downtown Marquette. That's not going to. Maybe if they could build 200 or 300 units, they could build them affordably. I just don't. Call me a skeptic, but that's fine. I just don't see it. But
Yeah.
the only thing you have to work with is your footprint of your building, and the, if you want the height to be over a certain height, you can only do that if you include housing in it. That housing's, again, it's not going to be below market rate housing. So what do you have to work with? You have your side yards and your rear yard setbacks. All you have now is a 10-foot on both sides required setback and a 10-foot rear yard setback. There's no front yard setback for buildings in that district. So you don't have much to offer in the way of floor area. I don't know where you go with this, and I'd hate to see us passing up something good for something perfect, even if it's a year or two delay. A year or two is, maybe it stops a very big project from happening. We've already seen the 60 delay a project that was going to happen downtown.
I do, and I guess that's why I think these conversations have to be had where we really, density bonuses are often used with much taller heights that we're talking about. Going from 4 to 5 feet is not that much of an increase that we're going to sort of be able to, builders are going to be able to sort of get so much more that they can kind of give back. I guess what I'm thinking about are sort of other trade-offs in terms of guaranteeing storefront, street storefront, or incorporating additional, parking. But I guess, yeah, I personally think going to the 74 feet is a really reasonable thing to do without restriction. And I would love to see the density bonus conversation, or that kind of a progressive thinking on it happen. But I do think it's at 74 feet, there's not all that much we can do. So that's my thought on that. Commissioner Larson.
I think my thoughts there is that whether it's affordable housing, storefronts, parking, whatever that might be, I mean, this would, and if we come out of it and we find there's no appetite for it, I mean, we'd be back at the 74, and we might say, yeah, all right, we seriously looked into it as more than just a kind of a concept of a way that we want the downtown to be shaped or this district to be shaped. And then we move forward with that 74 feet. But by just jumping to that and then trying to refit something to that 74 feet, or then saying, all right, well, we want to look at it for 80 feet. I think there's going to be less appetite for, trying to bump it up 6 feet or another 8 feet for one more floor or whatever that might be. Whereas if we are able to pull together a little bit of research during this time that, you know, you could potentially say, yep, it works, or no, we don't think it works. We brought all the parties together and said, you know, everybody's decided that it doesn't work for whatever reason due to size limitations, so on and so forth. At that point in time, I guess we would just revisit the 74 feet and potentially kind of pass it through at that time. But again, I think if we're going to make any possible changes, 74 or 80 feet, I know nobody's really talking. I think one of the commissioners last night said they'd like to see it higher than 74 feet, you know, downtown. But now would be the time to have that discussion. And I mean, if it's one, the trade-off of having one business for something that, you know, this could be in place for decades, you know, I guess I'm willing to consider that by delaying this conversation.
Commissioner Primo? Commissioner Primo?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're doing is stifling, and you talk about affordable. The reason things aren't affordable is because just like we're putting all together this great land-based code, it costs a lot of money to meet all the requirements of that land-based code. And then you get into everything else, and when you talk about affordable housing in today's market, Dave is right. There's not going to be anything that's going to be affordable unless some things are relaxed. And if a company can make a building work at 74 feet, but not at 60 feet, it should be allowed to build it at 74 feet. I mean, it's like an apartment house before, you what was it, 38 feet you could build? You know, a couple more feet, and you could do a whole lot more, but no, couldn't do it. And you want affordable housing, you've got to ease up on some of this. And Marquette's got a chance to do it. I would say you do it. It's still not going to be taller than the tallest building downtown. And it's sitting down in a hole. So I don't know if there's any views or anything that are going to be blocked by that building.
Okay. How do we want to proceed with this? Do we want to take, Commissioner Dunn?
Just a quick question. If we were to approve the height at 74, how do we keep the conversation going about density bonuses? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to get pushed to a back burner.
I hear what you're saying. I think, you know, I think what we do is we put together, in my opinion, I think we put together, the first step would be to do like maybe another joint city commission where we talk specifically about this. What I would love is to see the DDA at the table, you know, representation from the ad hoc housing. I mean, again, I would love to see affordable housing as part of this, but I do, just from my personal experience, think it's going to be hard unless we're going to much greater heights. And then I would love to have some people with experience in this kind of code writing involved if we could. And I think you know, to me, it was just so encouraging that there's an appetite for it, and that really has not existed before. So I think if we have the support from the city commission and we have even just one joint meeting about it, there will be sort of the fire to keep it going, if they're excited about it. But I guess I would like to point out that the city commission was all in favor, you know, it seemed pretty unanimous that they were in favor of going to the 74 feet at this time, you know, even those that did, you know, promote the density bonus. But Commissioner Primo?
Yeah, I would go back to the 50s. And I remember when they started building homes on College Avenue and Magnetic, and people were amazed. My God, can you imagine a house 1,600 square feet? People were amazed at the size of those houses. And they built them, and they're still building them. They're building them even bigger. I mean, why? why do we want to stop progress? I just don't see it. 74 feet, you know.
Dave?
Yeah, and just for what it's worth on the items that you mentioned, Joy, about retail storefronts and incorporating parking on site, those are really good and probably easy, relatively easy things to incorporate. And I was just going to say, I think a lot of developers would be doing that anyway. And I know the site plans for the building that Veridia wanted to build incorporated parking underground and at multiple levels below the building. And I think just street level retail is probably almost a given for any kind of development like that, unless it was just solid residential. But even there, we had a proposal on North 3rd Street about 5 years ago where the bank is on the corner of Fair and 3rd. Developer wanted to do 4 stories of housing with a full block there of street level retail. And I think that's probably a given that they're going to want to do street level retail. In most places, it just makes sense to capitalize on the footprint. That's all I had.
Okay. Further thoughts on this? Do we want to take a vote on this item? Commissioner Larson?
I swear I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. Again, I'm not necessarily against moving into 74 feet. I just think that this is the opportunity. It's prior to changing it that you can have that discussion of things that you want to go along with it. Whether that's the 74 feet, 78 feet, 76 feet, 80 feet. Now's the time to have that conversation of saying, do you want to make sure that it has street level? Like, you want to write it in there that it has that has parking on site? You want to write it in there that it has, some sort of storefront, on site? Do you want to write it in there that it has affordable housing? Again, maybe affordable housing, I tend to agree, probably doesn't work in this situation. However, we haven't, it hasn't necessarily been, fully explored. And if it comes back down to nobody wants any requirements to it, that would be the easiest thing to just say, all right, let's pass it through at 74 feet. It's just a delay. It's a delay. It's not against it, but it's a delay.
Right. I mean, I totally hear what you're saying. I guess, I go back to, this thing I said, I think that, it's something we can do, but I don't think it precludes us from making this step forward on, compact urban design, which is something that, I think our master plan, encourages us to do. So for me, I would really just like to see us move in this direction. And I think we can pursue what I do think is going to be a somewhat potentially complex thing to figure out in the next coming year. And so I guess that's just the approach I'd like to see. Commissioner Primo?
Yeah, you talk about affordability and then you want to tell people what to build and what to put where. Don't make sense.
I mean, yeah, I guess I think we should take a vote on this because
to dictate what they're going to build and how they're supposed to do it. I mean, that's you ought to go build it yourself. Why expect somebody else to do it? Do it yourself. See how it works.
I fully understand. I'm just saying this is the opportunity for the city to have, the DDA and whatnot, to have a discussion about it. And if they come back and say, we want anybody to build it to anything that they want, that's fine. At least we took the time to understand that, is what I'm saying.
Isn't that what Dave said? The city's decided already?
Yeah, I mean, I think the city has, in its downtown district has a right to say, the quality and character and of what they want to happen. But I do think, it will require some discussion. Dave, do we have to have a motion, or can I just call a vote on this? This isn't like an official.
Yeah, no, you don't need a motion.
Okay.
You need to decide what is going to be in your final packet here for the public hearing that we're going to have on November 17th, I think it is.
Okay. So I'm just going to do an informal vote right now. So all in favor of raising the building height to 74 feet, say aye.
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 So that was Commissioner Primo, Commissioner Cardillo, and Commissioner Dunn. You said aye?
I did.
Okay.
But the eye comes with the caveat that I really do not want to lose the incentive to keep the density bonus conversation going.
I agree with you. And, I think, Commissioner Bonsall seemed really enthusiastic about it. And I think if we sort of encourage him to keep his foot on the pedal with it, that would be an additional way to really make sure this doesn't get swept under the rug, because he seems to really have a passion for it, which makes our job easier if there's a city commissioner sort of really championing an idea. In my experience, it makes it a lot easier for us to sort of get the resources to pull things off. So then Commissioner Middlefelt and Commissioner Larson, you're a nay at this point?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Larson, pretty much 100% in agreement with Commissioner. I'm not against the 74, but I just think once things get passed, it's much harder to add nuance later. So it seems like now would be the time to maybe do more research and think about, maybe it's not just the density bonus, but maybe there's other things I don't know. This is not something I've done a lot of research on. So I'm thinking now would be the time to do more research and think about it. But I'm not against it being 74. I just think we kind of lose the opportunity to think more about it once it just gets passed. So.
Okay.
And same, not against the 74. Just I think that's the increases the carrot of having a further conversation, even if it comes back to saying we want to let people build whatever they want to build.
Okay, so my takeaway from this is that, we can go ahead with the 74, and we're gonna just keep the pressure on to have further discussion and hopefully come up with further code amendment to promote some concept involving density bonus or, trade-off. Okay, Dave?
Yeah. And I'd just add, if there was anything that really popped out as something that seemed to make a lot of sense, that was logical, we would have included it in there with this 74 feet. We would have suggested it, but this isn't something that's a very easy thing to sort out. What would make sense when, like Wayne said, you already have taller buildings downtown that didn't, even stuff that's built recently on the shoreline that didn't have to, besides the form-based part of it, unless we were talking about a form-based code, that would be a different conversation. But besides that, there's not a lot that really jumps out as obvious. So the next thing is the issue of ADUs, I think.
Yeah. Dave, I thought so. Who was everybody? Wayne wasn't at the last night, so just to get him up to speed, the city commission was really supportive of the change, but they wanted to. What did we have? We had two.
This language right here, maximum occupancy, which stated the occupancy of the accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 2 persons So you can see I've gone through persons and changed that to unrelated adults per the conversation last night.
So that basically means an unlimited number of related individuals, a family of any size is allowable.
Yeah, and that would be somewhat limited by the number of bedrooms and the size of the bedrooms that they have to still meet the minimum size standards for fire safety. So you're going to have a limit based on the size of the unit itself and the bedrooms. But,
Commissioner Primo, oh, sorry. Continue, Dave.
but yeah, you're right. I mean, theoretically, this could be 5 people. You could have 2 unrelated adults and kids, or a married couple with kids, or married couple with a roommate friend or whatever.
Okay. Commissioner Primo?
Well, you got to keep in mind when they say you can get 5 one-armed people and they consider them a family. We had that happen with in the past that totally tore up the neighborhood and made it really not desirable.
5 what people?
Well, you can get 4. It's like people with the same affliction, and they call them a family. So they're not related, no way blood-wise, but they all have the same problem. So therefore, they're a family. And that was established in Marquette.
Well, this doesn't actually
Where?
This doesn't actually specify the whole family thing. It just says 2 unrelated adults.
Okay.
The functional family thing, I mean, technically, there's probably theoretically, you could probably see that could happen theoretically, but odds of it really happening are slim. In an ADU, in a 750-foot ADU.
Dave, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Larson.
So does this, so two unrelated adults or 2 related adults, does that mean that, there's 2 adults and their 20-year-old kid can't move in? Technically, just to clarify that, I know that's
2 related adults and another adult would be equivalent of 2 unrelated adults.
Oh, I see.
So,
Commissioner Dunn.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Commissioner Hill's concerns last night, they are being addressed by this, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding it correctly.
Absolutely, yes. You could have, yes, her concerns would be addressed by this, 100%.
Yep. Okay.
So I think this is okay. I think we can move on from this. I don't think there's controversy. If anybody's got any objections, speak now.
No objections, but I just wanted to mention, it probably doesn't matter. The copy I'm looking at in the agenda is different than what I'm seeing on my screen right now. I don't have the verbiage of the unrelated adults on my copy.
Yeah, this was changed since the meeting last night.
Oh, okay.
I think it makes sense, and I'm glad to see that kind of opening up to more than just family members.
Regarding this other part of it with the chain of title and how to verify that the occupancy is per the code, our attorney has not provided any other alternatives. So the conversation hasn't been closed, but I've talked to her a couple times just in the last 2 weeks, asked her about it, and I haven't gotten any reply. So she said she was going to work on it, but she hasn't given us any reply. So if we hear anything else prior to us needing to prepare this for the public hearing, we'd certainly bring it to your attention and maybe bring it through the next meeting if we can. Other than that, the one other item that we talked about in some detail was the home occupations and home offices. So just to clarify, the home office is not considered, it's an accessory use of the structure, but it's a different level. It's kind of just more or less for people to do work themselves and not have clients come to their house or not have anybody involved in what they're doing with that office coming to their house. It's not supposed to appear, a home office does not change the appearance of your home. Would be a good way to say it. Where a home occupation, if you have a hairdresser working out of part of her home, it could definitely be something that's obvious. And that if it's in a mixed use district or downtown, they could have a sign for their business. You can't have a sign if you're in a single family residential district, but certainly in the mixed use district, a lot of this home occupation stuff could be an obvious business that's run as an accessory use to the residence. It's still not supposed to be the main use of the residence, but so over time there are a number of people that run their businesses as professional businesses, like attorneys and accountants, and other things like that. So what we talked about, the thing that we were stuck on a bit was, or we hadn't agreed on, would be a better way to say it, was the accessory use. And if you look at this first phrase here under home occupations, it said what we had in your packet was no activity related to the home occupation shall take place in an accessory structure with the exception of storage of supplies and equipment, which is a change from what it said before, which was accessory use is totally prohibited for home occupation. To take it a step further, just for discussion here, I prepared another statement that says the activities where you go to the next step where you could actually use the accessory structure. If it could take place in an accessory structure if it's properly permitted by the city and building codes department, and if those activities do not create nuisance conditions for neighboring properties, including noise, dust, bright lights, etc., and do not involve heavy manufacturing or industrial commercial service activities such as welding, auto repair, glass blowing, and farm and animal production. So if you wanted to take that next step, I think to allow stuff for a home occupation to be done like a hairdresser, to be able to use a shed to do that, build a little accessory structure in their yard, or use something, convert something they have to an office.
So Dave, just for clarification, it's yellow or green, not both, right?
Right.
And in this case, are we talking just about home occupation, or are we going to be also adding this into home office?
Well, just to contrast with the home office, what was in here already was to say that no activity should take place in accessory structure with the exception of storage of supplies of equipment, but that we brought this up at the meeting last night, that some members were in favor of allowing home offices and accessory structures. So this language I put into this section could be similar in either section if you want to allow.
Okay. So we're talking about adding this green language to the home occupation and then potentially as well to home office. So that's what we're going to discuss right now. Okay, guys, do we have thoughts on this? Commissioner Middlefelt?
I like the green option. I think we should, especially with the economy and, the recovery, I think we should try to promote, if someone's unemployed and they're I have a friend who's making art in her garage now. And I just think the more we can promote this kind of entrepreneurship on a small scale, we should not create barriers for that.
Commissioner Dunn?
I agree with Commissioner Middlefeld. I like the green option. My only other concern would be if, and hopefully this happens, but if somebody's, kind of accessory business use there took off and, there now all of a sudden there's cars coming in and I mean, is that covered by that nuisance verbiage? Would that include just overall busyness and a lot of cars coming in and out?
If I could answer that, Joy.
Yep.
In this next section, it talks about that. Limited customer traffic shall not constitute a retail store. Limited customer traffic is permitted. No commodities other than products processed on the premises shall be sold. And then with commercial vehicles, the only concern, and this was added about 5 years ago, because there were people that would have basically a moving sign, a commercial vehicle that was just parked at their home advertising a business. So they want to make sure that wouldn't be part of this. If you get this permit, you can't just park a vehicle outside with a big sign on it, basically, to advertise your business. Although you could have as long as it's a moving vehicle that, isn't part of this home business.
Yeah, then I'm all for it. The green.
Yep, I think it makes sense. And when we talk about when it talks about this is specifically commercial activities, because I would assume, and maybe it's more common elsewhere, but that there's folks that are still going to be potentially doing a little bit of welding in their garage or on their property, but as long as it's not for commercial use, we're not prohibiting that, I assume.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I know somebody, a local inventor that does a lot of welding for things he works on, but it's not really a commercial operation per se. It's kind of his hobby. I think it's a lot different from somebody who could potentially be, doing a welding service out of your home. Probably is, that's probably over the intensity level of what you'd want in a residential neighborhood, especially considering the flammability of a lot of that stuff.
And I assume that's why you're calling out glass blowing as well. I would never have thought to put that in there, but do we want to be that specific? And if there's somebody who's...
This was just an example. I put this together in about 5 minutes after I talked to Joy, between about 5:15 and the time the meeting started. And I would definitely like to talk to Andrea and Dennis about some specifics and bring this back to you. But this kind of the flavor of what I was going for with, if we want to be more permissive with this, like you said, and encourage some people to be entrepreneurial at home. Basic outline of maybe how we want to frame it.
Yeah, this looks great. This looks good to me. I'm definitely in support of the green verbiage with whatever kind of nuance you want to add to it. I think both for home office and for home occupation. Commissioner Primo, is this acceptable to you?
It is to me.
Okay.
I don't see any difference in some of it as a hobby that people do. They're doing it now.
Okay. All right, Dave, what else do we have?
I don't really know that we need to talk about anything else. It seemed like everything else was pretty much in agreement. The one thing I'd point out to you that I mentioned last night at the meeting that we didn't have in the chart that we needed to put in there for this required review process for different levels of different activities, development activities. We created this section that says if you're creating a new multifamily above 20 units, that's going to go to Planning Commission. If you're between 5 and 20 units, 5 to 19 units, or 5 to 20, that could be approved by staff. And then at this next level would be right below 5. So we didn't have this in here, but multifamily residential units that contain 3 or 4 dwelling units would be exempt from site plan review, but still subject to staff review by a zoning compliance permit, which means the stormwater management is still something that's subject to staff approval. So our engineering department's still going to look at that like they do with a single family home or duplex permit to make sure that there aren't going to be stormwater issues. And I think that's going to be a continuing conversation for us internally, is to make sure that we have the standards and maybe change, we may need to change some of the other standards to make sure we're capturing this 3 and 4 unit dwelling unit thing with all of the permeability, maximum impermeable surface standards that we have. But in the chart, there was one thing missing, and that was that section right there.
Okay. Commissioner Larson, did you have something?
Yeah, and I apologize, Dave. Did we have to discuss that one other thing about allowing home offices in accessory structures? You had the green note that said someone would like to allow that to happen.
Well, I think we talked about Dave's going to add the language that we have for home occupation to home office as well.
Oh,
Something similar.
oh, I apologize. I didn't know that. 2 separate issues.
We'll internally try to decide on what kind of language is probably appropriate for each one and bring it back to you.
Commissioner Dunn? Oh, sorry. Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah, I hate to bring up a tricky subject again, but I want to bring up the solar again, just because I'm trying to figure out what the process is. So I'm wondering, because I'm looking at the language, and I look at the language in our code and everything we've gone over a whole bunch, and I kind of wish that we weren't getting into it at all, but at the same time, it doesn't seem very restrictive, but yet it seems like, well, at least from what Ian said, and I know this is going to address this one issue, but just because he's still thinking that our code is sort of cumbersome for putting solar, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we can streamline it even further. But I think I might be misunderstanding the process. I mean, I look at what I'm seeing and it doesn't seem restrictive to me, but I'm wondering, is there something else going on? Like when they have to get a permit, is it just a zoning compliance permit?
He didn't get a permit, is that right? He didn't.
Right. Well, for the property he's talking about, they did not get a permit, and this change will make the panels there are about 3.5 feet off the property line. So this change would make those panels acceptable, conforming. They would be conforming. Now they're in the setback, and it says they can't be according to the code now. So.
Okay.
But he'll still need to get a permit. He didn't get a permit, and he will still need to do that, and that's on him.
Right.
And is that a building permit with the county, or is that just zoning compliance with us, or what permit is that? It's a specific solar permit?
We have the zoning compliance permit for the accessory structure use. And then building codes would require permits for some rooftop solar installations. I'm not sure if they require it for a residential or not. I would think they probably do have some requirement on that.
I don't think they do.
because you're adding, you know, a certain amount of weight to the roof.
Right. Yeah, there are, I mean, I
A
know
building
they,
permit has nothing to do with us at the planning commission.
right. No, I understand that. And I guess part of what I'm wondering is why, when you've got a building code and you've got to get, you know, a building permit. Well, I guess I don't know if you do every time, but I'm kind of wondering why we're involved in it at all. And I keep coming back to that idea that this is just a different type of roof covering. And I want, you know, I'm not arguing with anything that we're looking at right now, because we've gone over that ad nauseum. But and I think that we're addressing it correctly, but I don't want to get involved in this if we don't even have to. You know what I mean? It's like when the building codes are there and they have to do these solar panels, they have to meet building codes to do it. Why are we getting involved with saying, well, you know, this kilowatt system is going to have this happen? And I don't even want to go there. And the other part of it is that it seems strange to call a roof mounted solar system an accessory structure. And I'm still having a hard time with that. But again, I don't want to hold this up, because this obviously needs to get done, but I just want to keep this conversation going so that hopefully we can get out of regulating solar, because I think that it's covered by building codes and we don't need to do it on a municipal level. That's all.
Joy, if I may.
Yep.
So let's talk. Building codes looks at items on how they're built, right? Zoning, we look at the use, the location, the placement, things like that. So that's why when I'm looking at a permit, I'm looking at our codes for our requirements. And when the building codes, they might only get an electrical permit out of something I'm looking at, because that's all that they would need to look at for something. They're not going to be looking at it for location, for the use, if the use is allowed, things like that. So that's why we have our zoning, and then they have their building codes. If I may, that's just some of what you said.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I guess I'm not really talking about the ground mounted. So everything that I said is really kind of focused on the roof mounted, and actually the flush mounted, roof mounted type. You know, if it's an array that's going on a flat roof someplace, I think that's a whole different story as well. But I guess all of my comments are mainly just about flush mounted roof systems.
Yeah, so if it was flush, then we're saying there's no setback required, but when it's protruding, that's when we're saying you have that setback requirement.
Dave?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so building codes always requires us to sign off on anything that they have to permit as well. So we do that through zoning compliance permits. And this the accessory use as an attachment to the roof was what was recommended by our consultant for the code. And I have looked at some other codes, and you know, not the Leelanau code or the Grand Traverse code specifically, but I have looked at other cities' codes, and I've seen codes that are 3 and 4 pages of information. And I don't want to say that, you know, we're not being as progressive as we could be, but we're also not requiring nearly as much as some of the communities in Sunbelt states require for attached rooftop solar panels. So I'm sure there's a lot of variation out there in what's required, and I'm sure the people that addressed you tonight have worked in a lot of rural townships that probably have no standards, and I don't know why they didn't consult us with even asking if we had a permit requirement, because a lot of communities do, and our permit isn't exorbitantly expensive. But we have had these installed on commercial buildings where they've went through the permit process and they needed to go through the building permit process. So we can look at other options, such as what was suggested to you tonight, to see if those codes make more sense.
Dave, you know,
Commissioner
and
Larson?
looking at a lot of things like from MSU extension and things like that, you know, that and maybe this is just an understanding piece that I don't have a full grasp of. Like, what is like use by right or allowed by right? Because I see in some allowed, like you allowing like roof mounted solar by right. That doesn't necessarily. That's just saying that it's a permitted use. Is that just another way of saying it's a permitted use?
Yeah, that's a confusing term because, and I sat in with the ad hoc housing committee last week, and one of the people that was brought in as a guest speaker there from Grand Rapids, who's had a lot of different kinds of experience with promoting and building affordable housing down there, talked about that specific term, that they used that term use by right, and it just totally fired up the community to think that that meant that you can do it without a permit. That's not what use by often, and I miss, that was a good reminder for me because I often use that term too, and it means it's allowed in the zoning district. It doesn't mean it's something you can do without a permit. There's a duplex is a use by right in a multifamily, or there's if a duplex is a use by right becomes a use by right in a single family zoning district, still it's a permitted use. That's a better term, permitted use. They mean the same thing, basically. They're both allowed, but use by right does not mean you don't have to get a permit. It's bottom line.
Thank you.
Commissioner Primo, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I forgot by now.
Okay, do we feel like we have clarity on this? Do we want to discuss it further? Can we move forward?
I mean, I'm certainly not against taking a look at the couple of places that they quoted, and I probably have access to all that. Dave, as you probably know, the state of Michigan put down a renewable zoning database, and so you can essentially has all communities that have zoning for small scale solar, utility scale solar, small wind, large wind, across the state of Michigan. Marquette, somehow they must have done that right before Marquette adopted the land development code, because I don't think Marquette is included in that database, with this. But it's, if you search state of Michigan, solar database or something like that, you'll be able to find that.
Okay, I wrote that down. One thing I wanted to just bring back up is the fact that one of the reasons why I think the accessory use for an attached rooftop is a thing that was recommended was because we're thinking about it along the same lines as rooftop wind systems, which are a thing, and those would also require a permit. So, in either case, you're attaching something to the roof for energy production. It's probably going to require a building permit, and so that it makes sense that you start with having zoning approval for it being, as Andrea said, in a location that's allowed, and it doesn't exceed your height standard and all that.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything else, unless you guys want to bring up.
There was nothing else that I can think of. I think we touched on all the issues that provoked conversation from last night or that we had kind of left open. So if we want to finish this. Oh, can I, sorry, I'm trying to exit full screen. There we go. So Dave, do you think, are we good on closing out our land development code amendment work session?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to close that so we can move on to commission and staff comments. You can probably turn off your share screen if you want, Dave.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm getting back to the big.
All right, here, I'm just going to switch to.
I'm such a Luddite, man. I don't.
I'm just trying to get it so I can see everybody so I can call. Well, while you're doing that, why don't we go on? Commissioner Primo, do you have any comments?
No.
No. Okay. Commissioner Middlefelt?
Nope.
Commissioner Dunn?
Nope, I've talked plenty already.
Okay. Okay, everything just moved around. Commissioner Larson?
No comment.
Okay. And I don't really have any comments other than, you know, I kind of pointed out last night, you know, it's very interesting to see the way that the city commission is, you know, really bringing some new, you know, bringing a bit of openness to some of these ideas that I think there was some resistance to previously. So that gives us, I think, a lot more ability to, you know, try some different things potentially. Andrea?
I have nothing. Thank you.
And Dave?
Just report back that, you know, one of the things the city commission also mentioned, several commissioners, was that they were very pleased to see the planning commission really working to make the code better, keep, you know, working on all the things we're working on to try to improve the code and to make things easier for residents especially. So, and I'm really pleased to have such a great group of people to work with on this. A lot of the discussion is really helping us bring about better codes. So thanks.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. And with that, I am going to adjourn the meeting. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye all.
Bye.